My take is probably going to be three-head because this is like my first time that I'm actually sitting down and trying to educate myself on this. So this guy, I know that he was on Fox News and he did an interview with Tucker Carlson, but surprisingly, this is probably one of the takes that I actually agree with.
We have people who are arguing that even if the Russians don't invade Ukraine, that we need to invade and kick the Russians out of Crimea. That was an op-ed from a senior Obama administration official this week. And so I would say that it's even simpler than that. We're dealing with our warmongers, unserious people whose policy prescriptions could have deadly serious consequences.
I just hope we don't get involved because I'm worried about nukes. Yeah, exactly. With Russia, it's like every other enemy that we fought in a war in the last like 50 years plus, they haven't had nukes, you know, like we've been fighting against people like Afghanistan, Iraq, pretty much the Middle East. Yesterday, Putin announces special military operation against Ukraine, blames NATO expansion and neo-Nazism, urges Ukrainian forces to surrender, warns the rest of the world to stay out of the conflict or face consequences. Honestly, with how quick he moved, I believe him. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if he went and started doing shit because he basically just announced it yesterday and then boom, missile strikes being reported, Russian forces advancing from Crimea, explosions being reported throughout Ukraine, including in Kiev. Some regions have gone silent. This is not a limited intervention. The timing of the invasion is significant. It was launched both on Defender of the Father Day land and during the UN Security Council meeting. So as far as I understand it, pretty much during the speech itself, he had the attack commenced. So it was like literally as he was speaking about it on live TV, shit was going down. If Russia pulls this off, it could be the single most impressive combined arms operation in modern history. Okay, I don't like that. It sounds a little for war. Russian television is reporting that the Mariupol, I feel like I'm really pronouncing that one wrong, has been liberated. They're branding what is occurring throughout Ukraine a denazification operation. While that may sound good on paper, I don't think that's Putin's main motive. There's no way he gives a fuck about that. Like, I highly doubt it that he cares in any significant way whether or not there's actually Nazis in Ukraine. It just makes a good excuse and facade for the rest of the world so that way they don't be like, huh, you're just trying to seize Ukraine over there. I think it's pretty clear, like, his reasoning behind it. He just doesn't want us to suck Ukraine into NATO, and this is his way of basically asserting control of Ukraine before that could even become a possibility, because it's disadvantageous for him to have Ukraine be a part of NATO, considering that is directly on their border. If they do have US bases basically propped up right on Russia's border, that's going to be threatening to Putin. This image was taken from Ukraine's president's office, and it looks like there was an explosion off in the distance. From what I understand, all of the attacks so far have been strategic and targeted towards military bases. They've claimed so far that they're not just shelling innocent civilians. Reports coming in that Belarusian and Russian forces are attacking Ukraine from the north. This would be the fastest land route to reach Kiev. Ukrainian military is denying the amphibious landing at Odessa. Important to remember, lots of these initial reports will also be false. That's kind of what I was talking about earlier. Like, it's very hard right now to decipher through everything that's going wrong. So it's important to kind of have your tinfoil hat on a little bit and be skeptical of the things that could be coming out. Because at the end of the day, there's going to be agendas trying to take control of the situation in the media from all different angles. The Russian military emphasizes that it's carrying out precision strikes on the Ukrainian military infrastructure. The point is being driven hard in Russian media. Of course, in reality, airstrikes always endanger civilians. It's their nature. Although the Russian Minister of Defense came out and said that Russian armed forces are not carrying out any missile or artillery attacks on Ukrainian cities, high precision weapons are disabling Ukrainian military infrastructure, military airfields, aviation, air defense facilities. The civilian population is not in danger, which is kind of a repeated theme that I keep hearing from the Russia side of things. At the end of the day, it's hard to tell because obviously Russia is going to make themselves look as good as possible. But yeah, last night there was air raids going on and the sirens started taking place. I think that there was a live news broadcast and one of the reporters from the US was there, and you could just hear the sirens in the background. They're like, fuck, we've got to get out of here.
No, we have air raid sirens here right in Kiev, if you hear that behind me.
That shit is terrifying. Literally feels like a Fallout type thing. Kharkov military airport is burning. So it looks like they didn't attack the actual commercial airport. It looks like it was strictly the military airport, which again, still very shitty, but also good that civilians at the end of the day aren't getting dragged into this, because it's like they could not even be following what's been going on. This shit's been happening for 10 plus years. You know, it would really be unfortunate if they had to get dragged into this too and become a victim because of it. So several airports across various cities within Ukraine have been bombed. Here's an example of one of them. This is probably one of the biggest attacks that Ukraine has had. I know in 2014 that they had a major conflict as well, but I don't think the results of it were this crippling. These are all the reported missile strikes. It's not necessarily confirmed by any means, but regardless, that's insane. Like, it quickly went from peacekeeping in a couple territories to we're going to take over the whole country overnight. Russian media is emphasizing that what's happening in Ukraine is not a purely military operation. I don't know what the fuck that could mean. It's a special operation. Special operation. That is clearly a lie. That includes Russian intelligence and law enforcement services, including the FSB, MVD, and MCHS. The goal is to identify and neutralize the saboteurs. Here's a video of a Kaliber missile attack. This is the Russian equivalent of a Tomahawk. I'd be getting the fuck out of there. But then again, it's like for a lot of these people, they're probably motivated by things such as this is my home, you know, I want to stick around to the end. So here's kind of what it looks like right now as people are having a mass exodus. Man, that is definitely like a horror movie. I don't really have the stomach to keep watching Russian TV right now. Vladimir is taunting Zelensky. Zelensky's the president of Ukraine. You should have thought of that earlier, he says in response to the president's latest video from a secure bunker. That's a very petty take from him. The mood on Russian TV is euphoric. Interesting. I do not recall American war coverage like this, even during the Iraq invasion. So much laughter, such big smiles. As someone who has tried hard to present the Russian perspective to Americans, I am grossed out. I think at the end of the day that they're definitely getting fed some misinformation on what's actually taking place, and that it's hard to blame them for it, considering they're probably getting propaganda filtered through the military showing them as the good guys, when in reality it's not the case from a world perspective. Here's the first sighting of Russian soldiers just openly walking around within Ukraine. I doubt there's much of a Ukrainian navy left at the moment. Here's the aftermath of the strikes within Ukraine itself on the navy. This is wild. This is exactly like what my hometown looked like in 2020 during the summer when everything had burned down to the ground. Russian media has now reported that Kharkiv is fallen. I hate to hear these disgruntled cries, man. That shit, tear-jerking. I imagine this is as they're evacuating on their way out there seeing this. So far it looks like sanctions have been pretty much already placed on Russia from every country within NATO itself. In regards to isolating Russia, by all means, it looks like NATO has also, and specifically Biden, has moved troops to around Russian borders to be shown as a defensive maneuver. I understand the desire to provide weapons to Ukraine, but if that was supposed to be the US strategy, it's pathetic to be offering them from tomorrow. It's not even clear that you could get them into the country right now. It is a little bit weird, especially considering, you know, we've pretty much placed Ukraine in this situation all the way up until now, and we haven't done anything. That is a little bit weird, but at the same time, I think that if we get more involved, that it just doesn't really make a whole lot of sense, considering we've been pushing Ukraine to join NATO just to piss Russia off. Like, it strategically does not make sense for NATO to be including Ukraine. Like, they're such a risk, as some would say. But I know, like, the humanitarian issue is bigger than that, in that, you know, we should be helping people that are in need. But at the end of the day, I think a lot more lives could get hurt, and we could end up fucking up the planet for long term if we do indeed get into a conflict with Russia, because who's to say that they wouldn't want to launch nukes or anything like that? I mean, they clearly do not give a fuck. I think that the biggest thing, if the US is to have any involvement within this, we should just be providing refuge for refugees. Outside of that, I don't think that we should get massively involved. If there's civilians that want to get the fuck out of there, I think we should allow that to happen. Either that or having the surrounding NATO countries provide refuge at the very bare minimum. And if they do that for civilians, I couldn't see why Russia would go out of their way to further advance past Ukraine, considering everything that they've said. All the signs point towards them staying within Ukraine. I think it would be a little bit silly for them to go beyond Ukraine. It doesn't quite make sense, considering their natural gas and oil is all sold to pretty much the whole continent of Europe. So they'd be essentially taking out their own market in Europe, which obviously would not be good for their economy. Chinese media news outlet put out this: when the US drove 5 waves of NATO expansion eastward all the way to the Russia's doorstep, did it ever think about the consequences of pushing a big country to the wall? See, that's kind of what I was talking about. We really don't want to put Russia into a place where they feel like they're cornered. It's not going to end well for us. Yeah, this is basically just war in 2022. I mean, weapons have developed so exponentially with the technology that we have today that it's not surprising that an entire country could basically be taken over overnight. Like, we've automated everything from cars to the machinery that makes our food. So I'm not surprised that they're able to automate an entire attack against Ukraine and basically cripple them overnight. The whole reason I'm doing this live stream in the first place is because I don't want to be one of those streamers that just acts like I don't know what's going on in the world and that I don't need to care and that we're just going to play Super Smash Bros. Instead. Like, I think that's kind of the easy way out in a situation like this, but I think it's definitely worth talking about, especially with the seriousness of the matter. At the end of the day, my view on this is anti-imperialist. That's ambiguous with any country trying to do imperial actions. It doesn't matter if it's the US, Russia, etc. I think there's a lot of confusion out there within the ideology of people thinking that if you go against the US on this topic, then you're pro-Russian and vice versa, when that's really not the case. At the end of the day, I am anti-imperialist. That's where I stand. I just kind of wanted to showcase the timeline that we went over during the stream. That's all I really got for you guys today. Deuces.
Don't mind me, I'm not taking this serious. I'm just trying to have fun while I'm living experience. Just trying to find a point like I'm missing a period. Haters carry germs, but I'm antibacterial.